Welcome back to the Nordic Championship. Well, this is the final day of the group stage of this tournament, and there is so many things happening with these top 5 teams that I can't even begin to describe it, but I am going to begin to describe it, and to help me doing this is, of course, Henning Eklund.
Yeah, we are here, and as you said, it's the final day. On Thursday, we were playing the semi-finals, and now the teams, it's everything on the line for them. The first game of the day, we've got one of the teams playing for their life in the tournament. They need to win today to secure a spot in the semi-finals, and then eventually maybe be able to win it all, win the prize money, the glory, and maybe a spot in the EU Masters as well.
Absolutely, and that team is Nordavind, one of our first team to start off today versus Ostersunds FK. But let's have a look at the standings, and let's have a talk about this, because things are going crazy in the top. We have Ventus Esports up in first place, but right behind them are Nordic White, the Final Tribe, Ostersunds FK, and placeholder 1, 2, 3. All of these teams are 4-2, and all of them have 9 points in the bracket so far. And how this works is that if you get the same amount of wins as your opponents, you will count the points instead. And they are tied in both of these instances right now. Also, down in 6th place, Nordavind are still there and can potentially snatch one of the spots in the top 4, walking over to the semi-final if they are able to take every single game today.
Yeah, of course. We have the top 6 teams all playing for the top 4 spots, which will advance to the semifinals. Fortress, Celestial, and Riptide, unfortunately not able to advance to the semifinals. But as you said, it's so close, so much on the line here, and these teams are really neck and neck.
Absolutely, and they're all still playing today. So even though we won't see it on stream, the games that they play are still so impactful. Like, every single game will count today.
Yeah, and of course, you don't only play for the opportunity to play in the semifinals, but you also decide your opponent in that semifinal. So the first team will play the 4th team, and the second team will play the 3rd one. So then you might have a certain team that you want to face because your style matches up well against them, or maybe you don't have a team that you don't want to face. So like the spots where you place here is going to be very impactful.
Absolutely. So up in the top, Ventus Esports are still waiting, but they can't make any mistakes because there are so much on the line here. All of the teams are sniffing them right in their heels. Now, first off, Nordavind versus Ostersunds FK. Nordavind have been struggling a little bit versus in this tournament, but they're still in the running. And followed up will be Ventus Esports versus the Final Tribe. These are the games that we will stream and cast for you today. But as I said, there are so many things happening behind the scenes right now. There are so many games that we will have to keep track on somehow today, you and I, and try to figure out what this will mean. Like, the math in this is just crazy. I've been trying to do some calculations, and I'm like, I don't know. There are so many variables right now that I don't know what's going to happen, but I have an educated guess going into this. So starting off, Nordavind, they need to take every single game, and if they win the first game, that is the point where Ostersunds FK needs to start be a little bit worried, and Ventus Esports are looking stronger, more secure up in the top. But if Ostersunds FK can take this first game, ooh, that's the point where all of the other teams are starting to get nervous.
Yeah, for sure. And you got to mention also that Östersund, their second series of the day is against Riptide, the bottom place team. So maybe a bit of an easier task there, especially since Riptide have nothing to play for but their honor in the tournament.
Or Riptide really wants to have that one win, and Östersunds FK coming up all fatigued after this first series, and it's like, oh, it's okay, we're just going to chill this one out. And oh no, they lost. You know, like, it could happen. I'm not saying
could be.
It's probably not going to happen. Like, Riptide definitely have done everything they can and playing so strong, but these are some monster teams in this tournament. So yes, of course, I agree with you. It's going to be probably like not the most difficult game for Ostersunds FK, but still, I'm just saying, a lot of things can still happen for them.
Yeah, of course, you need to take it very seriously, as this tournament is pretty much closer than it's ever been. We've had the Nordic Championship a couple of times, and it's usually been a couple of teams up in the top, maybe 2 teams dominating the entire season. I don't think we've ever had this situation before, with 6 teams all being able to advance, and even the first spot being up for grabs for 5 of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you called this at the beginning of this tournament. You said that this was probably going to be the most even Nordic Championship we have ever seen. And I agree, it is. Definitely, just looking at today, it is dead even in the top for at least 4 of these 5 teams up in the top. So that is just crazy.
Yeah, for sure. And we're about to jump into game number 1, which is going to be, of course, between Nordavind from Norway and Ostersunds FK from Sweden. And these teams are it's going to be really cool to see them clash against each other because they know each other very well. The coach from Östersund used to coach some of the players from Nordavind when they were playing on Endurance in the Norwegian league. So these teams know each other very well. They've also been scrimming before the tournament started.
Absolutely, and also, of course, Sweden versus Norway, the everlasting rivalry between these sibling countries, starting off banning the Draven on the Swedish side and the Cossacks for Nordavind.
Yeah, this is interesting because no, it's actually the nameplates at the top are switched up.
Oh, right, I see that.
There we got the Nordavind and then Östersund on the other side. I was thinking about the Draven ban because Unforgiven is known to be a Draven player, so it would be weird for Östersund to ban it out.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. The Lucian and the Raven band versus the Swedish team because of their marksman Unforgiven, really strong on these champions. Lucian being one of the stronger champions in the game as well, down in the bottom lane. Sivir also being one of those power picks, leaving a completely different roster open right now for the bot lane. And of course, gotta mention the Thresh ban from the Swedish team and the final Yasuo ban to round it out.
So many bottom lane bans. I was thinking about the Urgot here being both a flex pick and a very strong pick that's still open, but it's going to be another flex pick in the Jace. So looking for Urgot to be a big pick here, as well as the Ezreal, which is really the strong AD carry that's still standing out. We did see Unforgiven not have too great of a game on that, if I'm being honest, but it's still a very good poking AD carry and works very well together with the Jace if you want to build that sort of poke composition.
Absolutely, and starting off in the Nordavind team composition, it is the Galio, also another flex pick coming up that could go towards the support lane usually nowadays, and the Xin Zhao for the jungle.
Yeah, and this is really something that Nordavind is saying, okay, you can pick Ezreal and pick a poke comp if you want to, but we're going to have all the hard engaged in the world. We're not going to allow you to play that comfortably on that sort of a poking composition, but Unforgiven is going to take the challenge.
Absolutely. So now looking at the Kaisa as the possible marksman for Nordavind, Ostersunds FK still have one more pick in their second rotation, but Unforgiven on the Ezreal is something that has been working out decently for them, but not his strongest champion.
Not his strongest champion, and I was thinking that they maybe want some more disengage here to be able to get away from a Sinso Galio, engage something like a Braum, something like a Tom Kench maybe, but no, that is the Rakan together with Ezreal. That is a strong duo 2 versus 2 lane, but I'm not sure how well Rakan scales later into the game right now. He's not been receiving like the most amount of buffs. Instead, he's been getting quite a bit of a nerf recently to his W, so his engage is not as strong as it used to be. Still pretty damn strong, though, especially into an immobile AD carry like Jinx.
Absolutely, although Jinx, she has the trap that she can set out to block Rakan from jumping in, so she can zone him just a little bit for a few seconds. But Rakan, as you talk about him, he used to be this super strong engage all by himself. Now he needs a little bit more help to not get immediately bursted as soon as he tries to use the quickening hand to battle dance to engage on his opponents, and especially if he misses, the battle dance seizes him himself. He's stuck for like 1 second before it pops, and then you have all the time in the world to kill him. So that is something that need to work around. The Jarvan has been banned now, and the Urgot.
Yeah, for sure. Looking at the top laners here, Sion is still open as the really standout pick. They're also looking at these mid laners. Adept has been really good on LeBlanc earlier on in the tournament, and it's such a dominating champion. On the other hand, Ericsson, we know him from previous Nordic championships as a great player, particularly on that SWE. So those are two extremely high power level mid laners that I'm looking for here. LeBlanc or SWE. It's a very interesting skill matchup as well if they should go up against each other in the mid lane. So looking forward to see those explosive burst mages.
Absolutely. Now we have both Lee Sin and Jarvan banned, and Cossacks, of course. So a lot of these aggressive junglers are banned for Östersund's FK if they want to try to match the aggressive play from Ploxy with his Xin Zhao. And you talked about it like champions like Zoe, for example, we see right here in the hands
Go LeBlanc,
of Ericsson.
Adept.
And Adept could definitely go for LeBlanc, but on the other hand, how many junglers do you still have left that can match Xin Zhao in the early game?
I think if you're up against the Xin Sao jungle, you can just say, okay, I'm not going to match early. I'm going to pick Sejuani and just farm in my own jungle, stay on my safe side on the map because they've got what should be a pushing top lane. Okay, we don't see the top lane matchup yet, but Jace should be pushing there. You've got LeBlanc into the So, which is a skill matchup with the strengths of Adept. I'd say that should be at least be an even matchup. So if you can go for a more defensive jungle pick like the Sejuani and just hug your top side, that would be a great scaling pick because they desperately need a frontline right now. They have no tankiness, no frontline whatsoever on their team.
Absolutely. And Sejuani, as you mentioned, she is still up for grabs. She is a jungler that Ostersunds FK can go for and sacrifice some of that early game instead. Now looking for the Gragas. And Gragas is a champion that you could go AP or you could go full tank on him. I'm not sure which is the strongest in the current meta.
You absolutely need to go for the AP jungle item. With your tank jungle item, you clear very slowly. You can, however, go for the AP jungle item and then into sort of a full tanky build. We'll see what Markoon chooses here.
Absolutely. So that is a path that he could go. The final pick for Nordavind is the Poppy for the top lane. So Kakan is going to play that champion. We can now see these full team compositions. We have the Pokey champion build on the Ostersunds FK side, and we have Nordavind with a little bit more of a team fight composition.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd say if I've ever seen two team comps that wants to play around mid lane early, it should be these ones. Looking at Nordavind, they just have a safe bottom lane, they have a safe top lane, and so much power in that mid lane. And it's such a volatile mid lane matchup. If either one of these champions, LeBlanc or Zoe, gets a single kill, that can snowball the entire game because they're two of the most one-shotting champions in the game. So look for both Markoon and Ploxy to really path to be able to put pressure or at least keep their mid lane safe. Just hover around that, look for counter ganks because mid lane is where they actually should go down here.
Absolutely, and also very experienced mid lane players that we have in both of these teams. And now, as we mentioned earlier, Nordavind, they are one loss away from being out of this tournament. They need to keep this pressure up. It is still a best of 3. They can still have that one lost match, but they can't lose the game. And how this is going to affect them mentally, that is what worries me a bit with these professional players that are kind of just stretching their wings and trying to see what they can do, starting off here in the Nordic Championship, wanting to move forward to the EU Masters.
Yeah, for sure. This tournament is such a good stepping stone both for teams and players. We've seen players go on to even the LEC now with Blomsterfinn, or Finn as it's called right now, but in the Nordic Championship it was called Blomsterfinn. Did such an amazing performance in the finals and then moved on to the LEC right now. And I can bet you these players are looking for the same thing and a good performance here today to bring your team to the semifinals, maybe to the finals and even a victory, which allows you to play in the EU Masters. That's something that can really boost and start up your career.
Absolutely. And also a lot of players playing in countries like Turkey and Spain and like looking to broaden themselves and then come back with all of that experience. And then, for example, we'll go to the LEC and such. There are so many ways for these young players to really prove themselves right here, right now. But it's all just going to start tonight with this first game. We have a quick break right now as Touch is writing that he has a little bit of lag. So they're going to just try to reconnect him probably and then rejoin the game again. But looking at these team compositions, talk about the mid lane, for example.
Yeah.
And the Zoe in comparison to the LeBlanc, the Zoe should be fairly easier to gank, isn't she?
Yeah, of course, less escapes early on in that kit, but more secure gank setup, I'd say, with a Sleepy Trouble Bubble and a stronger early game jungler in the Xin Sao. Xin Sao finds Gragas in the jungle, Gragas runs away. Maybe does a combo of spells, but then he runs away because he cannot win that 1 versus 1, at least before he gets an item or two. So that's definitely going to be a pressure point for Nordavind, although it should be an even mid lane matchup. Something that you should also mention is that later on, with the Jace especially, I think that Östersund can look for a 1-3-1 sort of composition with Jace and LeBlanc off into the side lanes. And if LeBlanc gets ahead, there is no way that Ericsson on this Zoe is going to be able to go toe-to-toe with the LeBlanc in a long lane where the towers are down. That's going to be so risky if you are that Zoe.
Which should also start to become very worrisome for a champion like the Jinx, as she is very immobile. Of course, with the Galio, you have all of that engage power, you have the pushing power and the harass power, but he doesn't have that much peel for your marksman in comparison to champions like Janna and the Nami and even Thresh with the Lantern.
Yeah, that ultimate is of course hugely powerful, but other than that, Touch is very reliant on his flash to be able to make things happen. Gallia with and without the flash available are really two different champions, and when it comes to putting pressure on in this lane, a W flash that sets up for Xin Zhao could potentially be something that you wanted to do, but this bottom lane for Ostersund is so safe with both the Rakan and the Ezreal, so I don't think that's what Plox is going to be wanting to go for.
Absolutely. A lot of disengage, a lot of mobility abilities. Kaken is going to get spotted up here by Kreis. Kreis going to get a few auto attacks off. I'm going to trigger his Kleptomancy a little bit.
Slice sack of gold for 80 gold plus 5 from the Klepto, so that is not a bad start at all. Can go back and pick up a Vision Ward if he chooses to go for it.
Yeah, he actually can get an extra Vision Ward. That would actually be
yeah, he does it.
yeah, a fairly good start. Yeah, that's a really good start for him to have that extra Vision, and for the entire team, of course, to get a bit more control over the top side of the map. Another quick pause is going to happen now, as I'm not sure if Touch is still experiencing some issues with his internet. This is something that we see from time to time in this tournament as these players are playing from back home. So they have to rely on their own ISPs, and that can be tricky sometimes.
That can be a bit tricky. We did hear about some power outages earlier on in the last week, so can definitely happen in this tournament, but should be back quite quickly. It's actually Ostersund who's been calling for the pause and saying it's just going to take a second, so they should be right back.
All right, so both of these teams experiencing some lag issues, and I guess that's fair, I suppose? If both teams have them, does that make it even?
It should be.
Is that so? It's a go. It's like, okay, you know what, Touch, you're just gonna have to let's start a lot of downloads and stuff, so you can have some lags, and then it's just gonna be even, and we're gonna go.
Yeah, should be.
Yeah, that's fair, right?
Mm-hmm. Talking a bit more about the team comps, the scaling here is quite interesting because Tide on this Jinx, if he doesn't fall behind, which he shouldn't really do into the Ezreal and Rakan lane, he is pretty safe as long as Kakan does his job. Kakan on this Poppy is going to be so important for peeling for this Jinx later on, because if a Jinx just walks up into a Gragas E-flashing on you, a LeBlanc jumping on you, a Rakan jumping on you, you're going to be having a very bad time. But if Kakan is there with an on-point steadfast presence, he can actually peel very well for his AD carry. And if Tide starts to get a kill in one of these fights, he can definitely clean it up, because Marcoon on this Gragas, I suspect it's going to go for at least a somewhat AP-focused build, and that would mean that Tide can just clean up an entire team fight. So unless this mid lane snowballs, that is going to be what I'm looking for Nordavind to win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. A strong last pick here from Nordavind with the Poppy, as she can block both the distortion from the LeBlanc and the body slam from Gragas. Of course, I think the distortion jumping back to a previous point as LeBlanc counts as a teleport, so you can still use it through the steadfast presence, I think, but not when you're first triggering it. That should still be counting as a mobility spell.
Don't ask me difficult questions like this time. I have no idea.
I'm not sure. I'm just thinking, you know, that you can flash out of it, so it should be fine like that, but you can't use like Relentless Pursuit.
Yeah, it should make sense.
Abilities like that. But I'm not sure. Okay, so talking about these junglers, you mentioned it earlier that this Xin Zhao in the hands of Ploxy would probably want to put down some aggression in the mid lane, can set that up with the Sleepy Trouble bubble, and Marcoon, of course, on his Gragas can attempt to match that.
Yeah, the Xin Zhao here for Ploxy really should be able to get some aggression going early on. Marcoon really wants to do a bit of a jungle clear, then recall to get his boots to be able to actually use the Keystone, which is Pick the Predator, and then he can be out on the map and be useful, while Ploxy, I mean, from level 2, but realistically from level 3, can be able to put down a lot of pressure and also wins hard into the Gragas early on with the Hail of Blades. And especially since Xin Zhao was such an early pick in this draft, like they really prioritized getting this champion early, which is not something that a lot of teams are doing, I am very much looking for Ploxy to do a lot of things early on, to make a lot of things happen. But so far, he's been going to take it easy and then make his first recall happen for the Challenging Smite. Now I want to see him making some stuff happen, though.
Absolutely. Challenging Smite unlocked down the bot lane. Ignite is going to start ticking on Unforgiven. He barely manages to dodge the zap and get away. But Tide and Touch looking strong in this bot lane, managing to find a good engage on both of these champions. Now going to force the teleport from Unforgiven before he is able to get his tier.
And that's unfortunate for Unforgiven. You really want your Tier or the Sheen on the first back, but it's going to go for the Call instead. That was a really good taunt from Touch, being able to really channel that Shield of Durand from the bush where he was out of vision. So Touch looking strong on this Galio support so far. And here you can see Ploxy doing just what I asked him to do with a 2 versus 2 together with Ericsson. Yeah, Merrickson is going to stay too safe for the body slam though.
Yeah, absolutely. Making sure that he does not take a fight that he can't handle on his own. As Adept was pushed in under his turret, giving Ericsson some priority. And you mentioned this earlier, Ploxy living in this jungle. Ploxy are going to go for this fight and going down dangerously low, being killed for the first blood. Going to Adept together with the blue buff. A big misstep here from the jungler of Nordavind.
That is actually huge, getting that blue buff on Adept as well. He was out of mana on this LeBlanc and now getting a fresh blue buff at 5 minutes. That is really big, and I mentioned this mid-jungle duo. It's always very important at this level of play where you're not really talking about like the best pro players in Europe, but still some really good players. Then mid lane jungle duo is very important. But with the Gragas LeBlanc here, it's so even more important than it usually is, and with the blue buff as well. This is huge for Ostersunds.
Absolutely. Now in the mid lane, Adept will be able to push a lot more efficiently than he could before. As you mentioned, he was trying to match Ericsson's pushing and went because of that. Now instead he can do almost whatever he wants in this mid lane, and also Ploxy, he said, being this early pick for Nordavind, being this early jungler that they really wanted to be aggressive with, now falling behind in this matchup. Behind 1 assist versus Marcoon, and also of course being behind a little bit in CS. That is not going to be a good start.
That is not a good start. Does still have the flash, and I looked a bit at the replay here. I think if he would have flashed, he would at least forced 1 flash on the enemy team as well to follow. So at worst, he would have traded flash for flash. At best, he would have survived. I think that's something he could have done. Did burn the cleanse from Adept though, which could prove to be important. So if they spot Marcoon out on some other place on the map, they can go for a mid lane gank. But as it looks right now, they don't think they would have a winning 2 versus 2 with Adept recalling to pick up a lost chapter here for 40 ability power and the Dark Seal as well on top of that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a strong power spike for him with even more sustainability in the mid lane. But yeah, Nordavind, I think a little bit of tournament nerves revealing themselves right there, as Ploxy didn't flash in that previous engage, or he just wants to hold on to his flash for another attempt for a big play on this Xin Zhao. But how much time does he really have on this champion to make something happen? I mean, at what point does Xin Zhao become less of a threat than he is now?
Definitely the big point is when you're starting to group up, so when you're not seeing like these 2 versus 2 or 3 versus 3s, but rather like 4v4s or 5v5s. Oh, here we go, level 6 for Marcoon.
Might not be a 5 versus 5, but it is a 2 versus 2. Marcoon arriving in mid lane, instantly using his newly acquired ultimate on Ericsson. Ericsson managing to survive, taking some damage from that little skirmish.
Yeah, forced to use the flash, that's the important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now securing this dragon, no response whatsoever, as OFK are not in the position where they can challenge this mighty beast. Are going to just stick around in their lanes. Make sure they don't fall behind in CS. Speaking of CS, also having a slight lead in gold so far.
Yeah, being able to get a lot of pushing there in the bottom lane with the Jinx attack speed and AoE, and then able to rotate up to the Dragon. That is really the first big win that we're seeing for Nordavind so far in this game. Cloud Dragon, though, probably the least valuable one in this game early on. I think Ocean is very valuable early on, Mountain is very valuable early on to get those tower plates, and Infernal scales really well into the later stages. Cleric kind of scales pretty decently, but still probably the worst one.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at this bot lane, the recall timing is so different for these two champions, as Unforgiven on his Ezreal, he managed to pick up his tier at the same time as Tide picked up his BF sword. So a lot of combat stats for Tide and none for Unforgiven.
Yeah, that is one of the big reasons that they're having the push here. Another is the Galio. We know and love it. Okay, maybe not, we don't love it, but at least we know it from the mid lane, where he could just Q and auto the wave with a passive and pretty much just got one shot. Here, of course, you're not taking farm in the same way, but you're still maxing that Q still really getting the push down, and having the push in here has allowed them to get a lot of bottom side pressure and the Dragon, as well as about 1.5 tower plate.
Yeah, absolutely, and that 1.5 tower plate, there is a lot of gold in the pocket of Tide, so looking at this Jinx, it's so important to get into that position where nothing really can tank versus you, and also versus this team composition. It's not going to be the tankiest composition looking at Ostersunds FK.
Yeah, for sure. This is a squishy comp, and you won't have to build any sort of Last Whisper, Blade of the Ruined King or anything, at least early on. Maybe you build Last Whisper later on in the game, but early it's just going to be that full critical strike build, Infinity Edge, seal items, and doing a ton of damage.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe even several tons of damage if this Jinx scales up well enough, but for now, it's just going to be a farm party down the bot lane. In this matchup, in the mid lane, Ericsson is doing his best to match Adept. Adept got that kill earlier, you talked about, and you can see how this affects the mid lane, although Adept is behind slightly in CS. He's putting up a good amount of pressure in this mid lane.
Yeah, would have liked to see Markoon try to make something more happen towards that mid lane, because, as you said, Adept had the kill. He's been able to recall one more time, then Ericsson to pick up some more strong items, and he does not have the flash. That's a big important thing, so an E-flash ulti for Markoon should be able to secure the kill if you've got the proper setup. But on the other hand, it looks like Ericsson has been playing really smart, really safe, and gone for the Merc Threads as his first set of items, so he's not been taking any risk up against this strong 2v2 duo. Bottom lane dive, though.
Yeah, flash forward, not going to hit anything with the taunt. All focus on this Ezreal is going to be enough, and going golden is going to keep Touch alive as well. Big dive on the top side is going to force the flash. No real follow-up on this, but Adept should be able, just barely. Grasp of the Undying is going to keep Kokken alive, but the minions are arriving. Kokken is still stuck under this turret. A little bit of harass, a little bit of turret tanking back and forth, but finally there is the kill for Ostersunds FK.
Wow, that was a really tanky pop. Here comes Ericsson for the cleanup, though.
Yeah, of course, if you stick around for that long, Ericsson is going to arrive. He can't do too much on this Zoe, though, as he used to Sleep a Trouble Bubble. Didn't hit anything through the wall, but in the end, he picked up the kill on Markoon.
And that bottom lane play was so clutch for Nordavind. The flash engage from Touch on this Galio, and then the clutch stopwatch to be able to survive that entire fight. When everyone was sure he was going to die, he was able to make it out. And that is an even bigger lead for Tide, who I already mentioned as the big win condition if Ericsson gets behind. 500 gold up on Unforgiven right now, and that's with Unforgiving running Kleptomancy.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like this draft for Nordavind put so much focus on this bot lane, and now being able to pick up the kill, being able to get this early lead, and also before this forcing the early recall for Unforgiven. It means a lot for the strategy that Nordavind are playing. They're going with this kind of team composition with the Jinx, gonna put a lot of responsibility into the hands of Tide. And it's up to Unforgiven and Shred to not fall behind too much in this matchup.
Yeah, I think you just keep focusing on the bottom side right now if you are Nordavind, especially with that Mountain Dragon spawning. That's going to be a huge objective with Jinx, who takes that Baron so well with the attack speed from the minigun. So I think you can just keep focusing here on Forgiven without the flash on the Ezreal. Rakan, not the strongest defensive support, but Markoon knows that's what Nordavind wants to be doing, so he is here to keep his bottom lane secure.
Flash forward, a lot of CC landing on Tide. Tide surviving and dodging all of these abilities. Now with the teleports and the arrival of the jungler, this turns into a 4 versus 5. Still going for this engage, though, as Creoso jumps into the fight. Adept is on a killing spree now, moving forward again. Shred not going to hit anything with the battle dance. Instead, is going to have to sacrifice his life. Zap is going to slow Unforgiven down, and the final auto attack in the air will finish the job. And those are 4 kills on Ostersunds FK. For only 1, actually, for Nordavind, as they lost Ploxy, of course. Adept was able to pick that one up. But now they're going to lose the bot lane turret as well. Kreis can't do anything to stop this.
That was a huge fight from Nordavind, especially Tide being able to survive. All of that's going to mean First Blood Tower and all of those plates. Solo tower gold goes over to Tide on this Jinx. It's going to be absolutely huge. And you got to look at that fight once more and really question what Markoon was doing. He had the opportunity to throw the explosive cask at Tide when Tide was stunned, knocking him into the team and securing the kill onto the Jinx. Instead, he thought that Tide was going to die anyway, so he saved that explosive cask, then threw it out later on when Tide was not stunned up, so he was able to dodge away from that as well as the two-shot barrage, so the Jinx survives. Markoon messes up on this Gragas, still gonna be able to get the Rift Herald as some sort of a consolidation prize.
Yeah, absolutely, but like Unforgiven as well, holding on to the two-shot barrage for a long time. Both of these ultis missed, and I'm gonna give a lot of props to Tide as well to be able to read the situation accordingly and to dodge all of those big AoE abilities, but still, like you mentioned, like trying to hold on to too many of these key abilities, instead having to move away with nothing. And Ostersunds FK also slightly faltering a bit here, behind about 2.5k at this stage of the game. And Tide, of course, being the key player for his team, now worth a whooping 700 gold for the shutdown of this.
Yeah, and looking a bit more at the scoreboard right there, you can see Ericsson now with a 550 gold shutdown. And what happened there is that Adept, who had been having a really good game so far, got down to the bottom lane, was able to pick up a kill using their ultimate, but then jumped back into the spells of Ericsson, who took him down. And then that was a big shutdown on Adept, who was then 3-0, that Ericsson just said thank you very much, put in his pocket, and now he is even ahead of Adept in the mid lane matchup that he had a really rough time in earlier on. And with Tide being so far ahead, I have a hard time seeing Ostersund being able to come back to this, but I don't think they can just wait until the later stages. They need to keep making things happen, because just scaling against this Jinx and Galio and Poppy and everything with your Jace and Gragas and LeBlanc that doesn't scale as well, they're going to be having a really rough time. So I think they need to keep making things happen with Markoon and Adept. This LeBlanc is still very strong.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen Adept put his team on his shoulders and just go crazy in team fights before on this LeBlanc. Point proven right here. You can see that huge burst he has on this champion. So yes, absolutely, Adept still such a strong player, and together with Markoon they have an amazing synergy as a jungle mid lane duo. But still, even with that said, this is an uphill battle for them.
That is some high IQ LeBlanc plays. Sit in a bush that's pink warded and then wait until someone comes near you. You just one-shot them. Good play there from Adept, and that's exactly what we spoke about.
It's stupid and it works, it's not stupid. That is
I
the rule.
didn't say it was stupid.
Well, you implied it.
Yeah, I did. I'm just going to admit that.
No, but of course, like if it works, right? So, oh, Mega Death Rocket. What it's called?
Super Mega Death Rocket.
Super Mega Death Rocket is actually not going to hit anything. And that situation is going to force this team, though, who is fairly low, to back off right now. Since FK are about to lose the mid lane turret, they managed to deploy the Rift Herald to get a healthy amount of damage onto Nordavind's turret as well. But still, as you mentioned earlier, they're falling behind. This team composition that they have, they wanted to go with the 1-3-1 you mentioned earlier. They have a lot of wave clear capabilities with the Ezreal, with Gragas. Going to handle this in a 3 versus 5 situation. But Adept and Kreis need to get strong enough to handle these 1-3-1s. And as the team is falling behind in global gold, are they going to be able to get to that point?
That is an interesting question. I think Kreis will at least be able to go toe-to-toe with Kakan here for quite a while. Still, Kakan needs to build some magic resistance to survive the Gragas and LeBlanc, so Kreis will still have a decent enough time here, I believe, stacking up with the Kleptomans as well. But as I speak of that, Kakan is just forcing him out of his lane.
Yeah, Kakan chasing him down this extended lane. There's no turret to keep Kreis safe, so Kakan realizing that he could do that after spending a lot of time under his turret. And finally forcing Kreis to back off just in a good time for the rest of his wave to arrive as well.
Yeah, middle lane tower is soon gonna go down, but look at Tide right there. He's gonna be getting red buff now on this Jinx with the Runan's Hurricane completed. Has a very cool interaction with the Jinx minigun if you shoot one rocket, and the side rockets also counts for stacking that attack speed. So one auto in minigun form. If you hit all 3 targets with the Runans, it's actually going to stack that fully, so you're going to get all of that attack speed immediately. Also some good wave clear here you can see with the rocket, so Tide is just a monster right now. This early on in the game, though, unless Kakan is in the right place at the right time, Adept, Marcoon, Shred, they are going to be able to kill him.
Yeah, absolutely, especially Adept with the kind of ability power that he has right now. But that is, of course, if he is able to get into the position where he can hit all of those key abilities. Now mid lane turret being sieged. And by sieged, I mean brute forced by this team with the about around 2.5k gold lead. Nordavind now eyeing the next dragon as well. It's going to be another Cloud Dragon though, so more mobility but no Infernal Dragons for them. They got the Mountain Dragon of course earlier, so that is going to be helpful once the Baron becomes a priority objective.
Yeah, that's a good point because Baron just spawned, and with the Jinx, with the Mountain Dragon, that's going to be an objective that Nordavind can secure quite quickly. So Ostersund needs to really keep their wits about them when it comes to that objective. But going around to like face check or just try to get vision of the Baron is so scary into a ZOE. Whenever you're going into territory where you don't have vision, that's going to be so scary because that Sleep Trouble Bubble can come out at any time, and maybe a Super Mega Death Rocket or something. On top of that, you're going to be one-shotting pretty much everyone because we remember what we talked about earlier. There is no true tank on Ostersund. Shred is squishy on this Rakan. Marcoon is going to be the tankiest member, but that's mostly because he has a Sonia's Hourglass. So being able to go into the Baron territory against the Zoe without a tank, yeah, that's going to be scary for Ostersund.
Absolutely, and with this vision control that Nordavind have been able to secure around the bot side of the river and mostly inside of the Ostersunds FK's jungle as well, means that as soon as you move a little bit too far up versus Ericsson, that could spell disaster. Sleepy Trouble Bubble is going to land on Marcoon and a lot of focus on him as well. Sonya's not going to help, he's not even going to try to use it. Now turning this around, here is Nordavind with the big team fight. Ericsson also picking up. Oh, the flash not even going to have to use it. Damage is there together with the taunt flash forward and Unforgiven going down. Tied on
Baron.
a rampage and Baron is up for grabs. These are 4 kills picked up on top of that attempt to catch Ericsson on the top side of the map.
Well, Kaka was so far ahead on the TP there, but was able to be interrupted by Crisey, which really made me think that Ostersund was going to have a chance in this fight right here, but still the engage coming out from touch with that Flash Galio ultimate, and then on the final thing that happens in the fight is that Tide is able to get the kill onto Adept with a max range W on this Jinx. Absolutely insane, taking down the big star player for Ostersund, and right now he's 5-0 on this Jinx. He's got a Hex Drinker, he doesn't give a damn. This is a big lead for Nordic.
Absolutely, and this is the kind of champion that if you're going to have a big lead on a champion and you want to say that I'm going to carry this on my own, this is one of those champions that you definitely can be able to do that on. There is so much damage in the hands of the bot lane star of Nordavind. Another attempt for a little bit of a fight here. Adept trying to jump in. You can see how much damage he took instantly. Also having to worry so much about the taunt from touch. But this is going to set up a siege with this 5-man composition. There is a huge front line as well to tank up this harass, this poke composition that Ostersunds FK have picked up. Also having some issues being able to kill these minions under the turret. The Baron empowered minions are so much more difficult to kill. Two-shot barrage going to hit every single member on Nordavind. Not going to deal that much damage though. Touch again, just taunting his taunt. Flexing his muscles and then backing up with that objective. Let's see what they can do with this Baron buff.
I like this from Nordavind. They are not getting too confident. They're not forcing, they're not diving, they're not taking any risks whatsoever in this mid-game. They're just playing very cool, calm and collected, not over-forcing this at all and just taking the objectives slowly but surely gonna be able to recall, and with about half of the Baron buff still open, still up for grabs, they're gonna be able to at least put on pressure on one more tier 2 tower and probably be able to get it. It looks like they're gonna be focusing the bottom lane here. So like this for Nordavind, a lot of teams would have been looking for dive in the mid lane, would have been looking for a lot more aggressive plays, but they're just taking it easy.
And Nordavind needs to win every single game today to have a chance of still being in this tournament, to get one of those top 4 spots before the semi-final. And they're on their way, actually, starting off with such a strong game. Up 5k, up 3 dragons, a lot of control on this map, a lot of vision control as well. Up top lane, Adept is pushing down a turret on his own for some reason, as he is able to secure that gold, and hoping that his team is able to defend this base on their own. You can see the poke from Ericsson just landing on max range on Kreis, taking about 40% of his HP.
That is pretty much Adept saying that, okay, I'm going to be the big one carrying this game. I'm going to have to win these fights for my team, and he's looking for a flank right now on this LeBlanc. You can see both Adept and Shred off to the side here. They are really going to be looking for it, but a Sleepy Trouble Bubble lands.
Yeah.
Shred steps into vision, and Nordavind knows what is up here.
Yeah, exactly. They know exactly. They have the vision they need, and they have the nerves to simply just back up for now, but still sticking around. They still want to siege this, though. They're not that scared in this situation, but this could be a deadly flank, definitely.
The Baron buff is going to be running out any second right now, so should probably just go over to that Mountain Dragon, secure that, reset once more, and then maybe look to start to set up the other Baron a couple of minutes before it spawns. So as I said earlier, I'm impressed by Nordavind. They're not overforcing anything. You can see they realized that Adept and Shred were looking for the flank, so they were not taking any risks. They're just going to be securing the objectives, securing the farm, and look to pick up the rapid fire cannon on the Jinx right now, which would just make her even more annoying to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. With the max range on the Q, you can even poke in one of those rockets. It's going to take one of these squishy champions down about, I think, less than half HP even on one of those max range crits, if Tide is able to get one of those, and that's an easy poke to land.
Yeah, that is one of the big powers of the Jinx there. When you get rapid fire cannon, you can hit people from so far away.
Yeah, absolutely, and that is just poke, point and click poke that Tide will be able to have now. So he is going to recall, is going to get some more items. He got the stopwatch as well from before to keep him safe from the burst of both Adept and, of course, Marcoon, if he's able to find the flank together with Shred. But this is going to be difficult to engage versus FK. They need to get an almost perfect and engage to avoid Ericsson, to get around a Sleepy Trouble Bubble, to be able to instantly burst Tide and still somehow through all of this CC, through the disengage that Poppy has as well with the Keeper's Verdict. It's definitely not going to be an easy task.
Yeah, it's going to be up to Kakan to deny the engage from people like Shred and Adept. You've also got the acceleration gate from Kreis to speed up the engage from Shred. Of course, Rakan's engage gets quicker and more harder to dodge the more movement speed he has, and that Jace gate giving movement speed is going to be really good for them. That was a flash being used for Marcoon, and that's a very important engage tool. Graga's very reliant on that flash, so that is actually a big loss for them.
Yeah, I was going to mention that it was a little bit of a difficult or weird situation that Marcoon found himself in, and he flashed just to make sure that he was able to get out of it. But as you mentioned, that is very important summoner spell.
Especially when Baron's up now in just about 17 seconds. They're just going to go straight to that. They have full vision, and I've mentioned this multiple times, you don't have a tank. The enemy team have a SWE and a Fed Jinx. What are going to be able to do?
Yeah, absolutely. They can't spread out too much, though. That was a good little poke from Kreis.
Yeah.
Tide lost a little bit of HP. Is going to be able to regain most of it before the fight starts. In the mid lane, you can see that Kakan is there to push this wave, and Tide is trying to keep track on Adept, staying as far back as he can, and this allows Ostersunds FK right now to clean out some of these wards at least and regain a little bit of vision around Baron, making sure it's not going to be taken out from under their noses. Up on the top side, the wave is pushing, and Kreis is moving up to handle it. Vision control instantly taken back.
A good wave management here for Nordavind. They are just looking for that key SWE bubble to land to be able to go for the engage on someone. They do, of course, have flash on everyone and can just go for a flash engage on someone like the Gallia or the Sinsao if that bubble lands. On the other hand, Ostersund, as we mentioned, they're looking for the flanks with Adept and Shred. You really have to look for these two key players in these fights. Adept being able to actually stack up quite a bit of ability power here with the flat penetration of the Morellonomicon and the Sork Shoes, as well as a little bit 250 HP, AP, sorry, on that LeBlanc. That is still a lot of burst damage. Sure, Tide, you've got the Hex Drinker, but if everything lands from Adept with the Ignite, sorry, not the Ignite, but if everything lands from Adept, that's still going to be hard to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of damage on Adept right now. And for his opponent, Ericsson, he is looking for these flanks. He's trying, but he is running a little bit scared. They're having limited vision still. They are a bit worried about one of them moving forward too far up and getting caught by Adept or Marcoon. As you mentioned with the acceleration gate as well, there is so much pressure. Now though, waiting for this bottom wave to push in. They have a good slow push set up on the bot lane. Looks like that wave it will be able to break through the defending wave for Ostersunds FK. So sending Christ down bot lane to handle that, not lose out on all of that EXP as well to the turret. It's going to teleport back instantly as the Baron has been started, and immediately Nordavind back off.
Yeah, that's the power of wave management right there. Nordavind being able to secure a good slow push in the bottom lane, forcing the TP from Crisey. So that is pretty big for them. Speaking of pretty big, an Infernal Dragon is about to spawn. Is that something that you want to set up for? I think the answer is yes. You don't commit too many people down to this Infernal Dragon because that would give Ostersund total Baron control. It's not like Ostersund can do the Baron very quickly, but you still don't want to give them full secured envision right there. But I think you might only send down like Floxy and Tide, or maybe even just send Tide solo down to the Infernal Dragon to secure that while the rest of the team keeps track of the Baron.
Absolutely. One thing that we can see right now, though, is that Nordavind have been able to get most of their lead, most of their this team composition to work on top of mistakes from Ostersunds FK. Ostersunds FK have tried to engage, gone too far, and then been punished when all of their abilities were on cooldown. Now, you can say Ostersunds FK instantly going for this Baron, getting some vision control on it, although they don't have the fastest Baron take with this Ezreal and with the Jace being the main damage consistently on the Baron right now. I'm gonna have to back off with Baron around half of his HP when Nordavind were able to arrive.
Yeah, no blade on the Ezreal. LeBlanc being very weak at taking the Baron. That's you're forgiven. You're going straight into the face of Kakan. Oh, that could have been really risky for him.
Absolutely, and it definitely was. Ericsson jumping forward, gonna sleep Triple Bubble off, and is going to keep Unforgiven out of this fight.
Look for Adept. Adept is flanking.
Adept coming in from behind. He has not been spotted yet. Now they see him. Are they going to be able to do anything about it? Though they get the inhibitor, and Adept can't take this fight as Unforgiven was unable to join the fight.
Yeah, that's very key there. Unforgiven getting bursted out by this, so he almost goes down. There is no QSS, there is no defensive items for him. A Knight's Vow is beginning to get built on Marcoon, but still almost goes down. And this is going to be Baron setup. You can see how much quicker Nordavind does it, both with Double Mountain and this fed Zoe.
True Shot Barrage is going to hit, still not enough. Touch making sure no one gets close to his team as they back off with the price that they wanted. Looks like Flash will be forced for Ericsson as he was stuck inside of the Baron pit, but in the end everyone gets out, sacrificing one summoner spell for a little bit of a cheeky recall. Still going to stick around for this actually, as Tide and Floxy wanted to go for the fight with Adept. You can see that the extra magic resist that Tide has makes him quite tanky versus Adept now.
Yeah, but this is going to be the big play, the big timing winner for Nordavind to be able to finish out this game. You've got 5 dragons, you've got Double Mountain with his Jinx. You're going to be shredding through towers so quickly. And it looks like bottom lane is going to be the lane of focus. And I like also that they're not splitting up their team. A lot of time, Baron buff gives you the opportunity to go for a big split push, but with the team comp that they've got going versus what Ostersund has, you really just want to be forcing those 5v5. So going down the bottom lane with all 5 members is definitely the correct choice here. You can see Kreis without the TP. The only TP is with Unforgiven, and where they slow pushing top. Okay, maybe not top lane is slow pushing, but still with some pressure being able to be put in here for Nordavind. It's actually pushing. So that's a good setup for them as well. And without a TP on Crazy, it's going to be difficult to deal with for Ostersunds. And they have to rely on some of his skill shots to hand, like that poke from Crazy onto Tide, because he's taken quite low, and we know these two flankers, Adept and Shred, they're going to be trying to win this game for Ostersunds.
Yeah, but Shred instantly shred to pieces. Christ moving forward as well. Ericsson getting him in the back of side of this fight. Flashing forward now, it's Touch instantly going down, but Tide is untouched. Meanwhile, flashing forward, chasing this down, getting auto attack after auto attack off, and that is the ace. Ericsson going golden for a second just to make sure that he uses that key ability before the game has been finished. Turrets about to blow up in the faces of AFK as they did not finish this game the way that they wanted. Instead, Nordavind was able to take that first key win for tonight.
Yeah, and that's just the power of a 5-0 Jinx. They're in the final fight, being able to run everybody down. And as we mentioned, no front line at all on AFK. Tide could just not go for the last whisper, just go for a full damage build and be able to shred through all of these targets. They did go for the hard engage, but that was onto Ericsson, who did have his own Hourglass and Merc Threads. So he just lived through all of that. Can't really criticize AFK too much for that last fight, though, because the big problem was that they were just too far behind to begin with, wasn't able to do the Baron dance properly at all, lost out on all sort of control on the bottom side of the map, and really, you got to question this Rakan pick for Shred, because the bottom lane for Ostersund just got pushed in completely, lost out on tower plates, lost out on dragons, lost out on every sort of lane pressure and farm, and this Rakan didn't really do anything.
Now, my big concern with the Rakan is that Rakan has such a strong engage as kind of a secondary follow-up engage. Yeah. You don't want him to instantly get focused and bursted as soon as he tries to catch someone, or he needs to get like the perfect ultimate off where everyone gets CC'd. And that is my first issue. The second issue is that they didn't even want those engages. Like, they were playing a 1-3-1 composition. They wanted to have the Jace, which did have a great lane versus
it did well.
Yeah, absolutely. They wanted Adept in another side lane who absolutely was able to 1 versus 1 with Ericsson, and they never got into a position where they were able to utilize this. And even if they would, I feel like Shred's Rakan would still not really have worked out. I might be wrong on this. Maybe I'll get educated after this game. Maybe Rakan is great in this kind of team composition. But looking at what you told me, looking at this game, I am having a hard time to see how that specific champion tied into this composition.
Yeah, I think it's still quite good into the Jinx, who is very mobile, but still, you got pushed in very hard early on. You didn't have any sort of pressure, and a champion which scales great into the later stages, like the Jinx, when she also has pressure early on in the lane, are able to get all that gold, accelerate really quickly, control all the dragons. They had 5 dragons at the end of the game.
Absolutely.
That's really just a position you cannot be in. So if I'm with AFK, I'm just going to be hoping and praying that next game either Lucian or Draven is going to be open, and Unforgiven is going to be having a much more of a dominant laning phase, because you can't just get pushed in and lose lane on the Ezreal.
No, absolutely. You're absolutely right, though, that the Rakan is definitely strong versus immobile champion, so that is something that you're definitely right in, but didn't work out for them this game. We're now going to a quick break, coming back with match 2 in a couple of minutes.